This is Mitch, and welcome to the 1000houses.com podcast. It is brought to you by livecom.com, livecomm.com. And if you haven't had a chance to learn how I managed to have an average of 4 days on the market with the last 200 houses that I've sold, check out livecom.com. I've managed to sell my houses in 4 days or less. With no signs. I don't use any signs anymore. I don't put any signs in my yard. I don't put them around the neighborhood. I don't do anything anymore. I just use Livecom and I sell my houses. And it's good for so much more. So thank you, Livecom, for sponsoring this episode. Today we're here with Dany Johnson. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Mitch.
Dany has his own podcast called Flipping Junkie, and he also is the creator of a very nice CRM that we're going to be talking about, because today's subject is all about follow-up. You know, if you'll just have the right follow-up system for the leads that you have, you probably don't have to concentrate on getting more leads. You just need to concentrate on converting the leads that you've already driven into your system. So how are you doing today, Dany?
I'm doing great. Like we were talking about before the show, we've had so much rain here in South Texas, and both of us being in San Antonio, it was kind of nice to have a couple days with sunshine and not as many showers. So
yeah, so we go way back. I think we had the same mentor from way back, right? Not really a guy who posed or put himself out as a guru, but he was and still is quite an amazing investor. We kind of grew up under this guy's tutelage and watching what he was doing. He prefers to remain anonymous, I'm sure, so we'll keep him anonymous. But he's a San Antonian, and I don't know. So Dany and I have a lot of history, and we certainly grew up making the same notes on the same piece of paper from the same guy. So tell us a little bit about your background real quick so the audience can learn who you are, and then we'll move forward.
Sure. Yeah, I'm always tempted to mention his name, and I'm sure people are like, who is this guy? Right?
I know him anyway, so it doesn't matter. So
right. Yeah. So, all right. My history. So I went to college to be a computer software engineer, to be a software developer. And while I was doing that, my father actually started fixing up houses. As a house flipper, he was just having a bunch of fun doing that. Growing up, he was a contractor for our mentor. And, so I grew up as a kid cleaning out demos, these junky houses and all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, after I graduated college, I was working a job as a software developer. That was okay, making really good money. But my dad was having fun. Like, he was having the time of his life. And I was saying, man, this is, software is great, but, he's having a lot more fun than I am. And I want to do that. I want to be out there on the road while everybody else is at the office at work, right? I want to be doing that stuff, checking out my properties and living that life. So got into it and was part-time for about 3 years. Went through the market correction back in 07, 08, made it through all that kind of stuff with the help of our mentor and people like Mitch, this owner financing and stuff like that helped us get through that whole situation. And coming back out of that, as the market started improving, was when I transitioned to really focusing on building my business more as a business instead of treating it like a hobby. Because it was really kind of run like a hobby for so long, because I didn't go to business school. I didn't have all that education. And so the transition really happened after the market got better back around 2012, 2013. I started to build out and build that as a true business, and eventually had more freedom to work back in software again and do both. So I had, create software for real estate investors. So I got the best of both worlds in there together while I was doing that. And then up to today, where I'm mostly just picking up rental properties.
Yeah. So you struck a chord with me. You said your dad was having fun. And so in my book, My Life in 1,000 Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, I have a quote from Michener, and I want to read it. It says, "The master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play. his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. To him, he is always doing both. That's what that's what you wanted, right? And my wife, after reading that quote, when this book came out, she read that quote in the front of the book that I captured from James Michener. And she said, for the first time in my life, I think I understand you. Because she always thought, she always thought, like, where are you at? It's 10:30 at night. I'm working. Where are you at? Well, I'm at Reggiano's. He says, that's a bar. You're not working. I said, you don't understand what I do. The guy I'm sitting next to is worth millions of dollars. I need some private money. Believe me, I'm having fun, but I'm working. Like she always thought I was screwing off. Yeah. And I was having fun, but I was also working. There wasn't a second that, just like you, there's not a second that your brain isn't calculating.
True. And as I started transitioning to build my business more as a business, I couldn't understand how my dad wouldn't do the same.
He was old school.
He had it as a business, but he was operating a little bit differently. And, having a lot of my family works with him and things like that. So, but we were getting more into the systematized thing, and that wasn't for him, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I didn't understand that, but I do, as I've gotten older, I do realize, like, I understand he's doing what he loves, doing it how he loves doing it, and it's not work to him. So he's not trying to find a way out of it. Right. Whereas that is what some people are doing with building that kind of thing. They're trying to find a way out of that kind of thing, but he loves what he's doing. So that's great. I wanted to mention too about your book. I can't imagine anybody listening to this hasn't read your book, but if anybody has not, I absolutely love that book because it's so real, Mitch. Like, you talk about so many real things and shows who you are. You get to know who you are. And it's a fantastic story. And I was trying to think of the real estate book that I enjoyed the most the other day. And after coming on here, I'm not trying to blow a bunch of smoke or anything, but it's really an excellent book. I think it's one of the top real estate books out there.
I appreciate that. And, the only reason it worked out the way it did is because I was writing out of grief because of a tragedy that happened to me. And I didn't know I was writing a book. I was simply journaling to myself or into an audience. I don't know why I picked the audience, but I was journaling to this audience. I was trying to explain myself, or it turns out later that there's a phenomenon that happens. I learned this from a guy who was 40 years in geriatrics, who'd watched a lot of people die, that when there's a tragedy in your life, you find the need to catalog your life. And what I was doing was cataloging my life. And so I was being very honest with myself because I was so raw and so grieving. I didn't care about what anyone thought about anything. I was just telling you how it happened. And, this ain't the way it's supposed to go, but this is how it happened. And this is how I fixed it, or this is how I didn't fix it. And so I think the honesty and the rawness is what came through in that book. And that's what connects with people. Also, I pull my pants down a lot and show my hiney and all my time in the woods. And I think that's the other thing that people connect about, because everybody spends their time in the woods before they find themselves, And if you're not forced to if you're not forced to spend some time in the woods, which is the problem with being born with a silver spoon in your mouth, then you never do get it done, right? Because you didn't get your back against a wall hard enough to come out and find out what kind of man you are, or woman. So it's funny how this business, or any business, when you're an entrepreneur, Ken D'Angelo, who was the founder of HomeVestor, said, entrepreneurs rarely end up with the business they start out with. They're always mutating or morphing to the path to the most money for the least resistance. And so look where, I see that in my life. I have a lot of residual businesses that actually, some of them are starting to do better than my house business. And you're doing that too. Let's talk about the residual side in this CRM that you've learned to develop.
Sure. I think a lot of this comes back to really, what's the point of having one, right? What's the point of even having a CRM? Like, if you don't have a clear idea of what you're even using it for. Because I think, a lot of investors out there, when they hear about CRM, are thinking, well, I mean, I've got my system, it's working fine. And we actually do, this is probably the 8th iteration of a CRM system that I've built. It's evolved to this. And I've run the whole gamut of what it could be. And I feel like a lot of software tends to be competing with the other similar softwares and just trying to one up them, right? Like have the longer feature list. And we did that. And what I found with that situation was just that the usability sucked, right? And if you don't use something, if you don't have a system you're using that you like to use, you tend to not use it, or at least to its ability, right? So it doesn't end up helping you.
Yeah. So how many times have I wanted to take my TV control and throw it out the window? I just want an on and off switch, a channel changer, and a volume. That's all I want. I don't want all this other stuff.
Right. That's why I like the Apple TV remote, right? Yeah. I mean, it does everything. I mean, it's a pain in the ass when you got to put a funky password in, but anyway. Yeah. So we built out the thing that had all the crazy stuff in it, and then I scrapped it. And it was hard because it was,
a lot of hours.
What's that?
It was a lot of hours. Oh
yeah. A lot of hours, a lot of money. And, we had customers that were using it and okay with it and good with it, but still the usability, I wanted to start from thinking, let's get rid of all of our assumptions. Because I had a brilliant guy that was working with me that was telling me, the minimum viable product thing, stop making so many assumptions about what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to do. Make as few as you can. And it'll be embarrassing at first what you release, but what it's going to evolve to will be something different, right? Evolve to something that's even better. And I think it goes into the whole thing, like you were just talking about with that quote from Ken D'Angelo, is, with a different respect to it, the side of creativity, right? The side of, if you just follow a play-by-play from somebody else, and if that play doesn't work, but you say, well, whatever, and you go to the next play and you just keep doing those plays, and you don't find a creative aspect of it to make it your own or find your own path, right? There's something lost there. And I think that there's an element that doesn't work out very well. So anyway, we created this system to focus on lead management and follow-up, right? At the core, that's really what it is. It's to help you. If you put a lead in there, you're going to have much better chance of turning that into a deal, right? That's the whole entire focus. And that has to do with communication, things like that. We can talk about all this feature stuff, but nobody really cares. What really matters is doing that. And there was a time that I got a little bit of a slap in the face when I had released that book, Flipping Houses Exposed, because I did 34 weeks in my life at that point years ago of generating 495 leads within that 34 weeks, right? Motivated seller leads, qualified leads, not just some list or something. Guess how many deals I did from that? I did 11 deals, I think, during that book, during those 34 weeks out of the 495 leads. I think that was like one out of every 45 leads. It took 45 leads to get a deal, right? Which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. And over time, I didn't even see that at the time. People were just telling me, oh, this is great because it shows me it's a numbers game, right? I mean, if that one's not before, some people would go out and find maybe 5 or 10 potential deals, find some leads and not get those, not turn those into deals, and then feel like they're doing something wrong or their market is not, is too competitive, or they're just, not cut out for this. And then seeing that I was having to take more leads and I would pass on them and eventually I would get a deal, showed them that they could do the same thing, right? But at the end of the day, it was really poor management of the company, poor management of what was happening once those leads were coming in, which was where the problem was.
Yeah. So are you going to your customers to find out what you need, or how are you? You said get rid of all your assumptions. I mean, you only know what you know. You only know what you think you know. So how are you how are you figuring out that your assumptions, that they were your assumptions and not fact?
Well, there's a guru.
Were you going to your customers and asking them what they needed, or what?
There's a guru in India that I fly out to every 6 months, and he channels No, I'm just kidding. I'm getting.
I was gonna say this is getting. You got me, man. I was like, oh shit, this guy's going that direction.
If I had more beads on, you might consider that.
Yeah, we just lost the audience.
No, it was a joke. Hey, no, that's what we do. The communication is paramount with customers, and from the beginning of the revamp and the redo, that's where we've been. Constant communication. I've got some of the most ideal customers on my cell phone. I call them directly. We have Zoom calls every 2 weeks with whoever wants to join that are customers. We set the vision, but then they guide how that's implemented, right? The usability of it, how that all works out. And they hold us to one of our core values that we have of simple, to keep the thing simple. That's the whole point, is having something where you're not getting calls from your team about how to use this thing. Your team should be calling you about situations regarding business, like doing deals, not how do you do this or that with the software, the thing's not working or whatever. So you're not spending all your time messing with something that's supposed to save you time.
So part of the problems I found with CRMs, and I'm going, this could be an uncomfortable question, but it needs to be addressed. Like, part of the problem with some of the CRMs that I bought or whatever was that it didn't do what I wanted it to do. You know, like I needed pretty much what they had, but I have an extra seat in my office, or, I had something else. And so that was always like kind of an issue. How are you dealing with the one size fits all? How does it do that?
Well, and we're not being a one size fits all. So that is a distinction, because, and that's a perfect question, because that's a
real life problem. It's right. A real life problem. His office isn't set up like my office. My office is not set up like your office. Right. Every office is different.
And that's where the last version, where we built out everything for everybody, that's why that didn't work, is because the person in multiple markets, running 3 or 4 teams, doing this, that, and the other thing, needing to transfer calls mid-call, all this kind of stuff going on. That's not the majority of people. And those people need custom solutions. I mean, they just do. They're set up because that might be great to build that out. And then somebody else might say, well, I can grow into that. Well, no, because you're paying for a lot more, and you're not going to use that stuff, and it's going to bog you down because you are not operating at that level. So we focused on, well, who's the ideal customer, because we want to do that for them. And really, the ideal customer is somebody that's generating leads, right? You don't need a CRM if you're not generating leads. Like, we're not going to sell you on it if you don't have something to put into the system. All right, so you got to be generating leads and doing some deals. Now, whether you're doing it yourself, mom and pop, or got a small team, that's really who we're for. We're for that person that's doing that. You got some team communication in there and all that kind of good stuff, but we're not multiple market, and we're not doing all those, big crazy things that really isn't necessary.
Well, so that's a good point. Like, I did the math recently, and what I'm about to tell you in $7 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, okay? But it's just where I'm at. Somewhere there's a guy that can wipe his backside with my financials, like right down the street, not very far. But there's a lot of people who'd like to be where I'm at. This is where I'm at. I bought a house about every 4 to 5 days in or about San Antonio for 2.5 decades, okay? About 100 houses a year. But you don't have to do that kind of volume to be a very successful person, right?
Right.
The only reason I'm not doing 200 is because I got comfortable. This is where I want to be, or if it becomes too much, I'll cut down to 50. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. So what do you think the user of your CRMs, what do you think they're averaging? How many deals per year?
I think overall it's probably about, if I average it out, it's probably about 20.
See, and that's the point I wanted to make, is like you built something for that group of people that was not right. Overly complicated, was easy enough to navigate. Believe me, I had to build my own for the reasons, and I wish I didn't. $50,000 later, it's almost working right. You know what I mean? It's like, you have a degree or an education in software. I don't even know how to talk to these people, But one of the most important things I learned is if you don't have the complete vision of what you want to do before you start, it turns out to be like one of those rehab houses where they just have an add-on to an add-on to an add-on, and the shit don't flow. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like the house doesn't flow. It look, it's like, wow, there's like 17 additions to this house and it looks like shit.
That's and that if you're using software out there, if you're using software that you notice has not changed one bit in years, there's a term, it's called code debt. And just like you said, the house gets to a point where you can't really do anything to it because it's such a mess already. So many things have been put on without planning beforehand that it's almost impossible to change without blowing the whole thing up.
Oh yeah, code debt. I like that. So let's do this. Are you offering a free trial, or are you giving away something? I mean, I forgot that part in the notes, or you didn't put it in the notes.
Yeah, it's a 14-day free trial. So
we got a 14-day free trial. I want everyone to go to 1000houses.com/4 and then FRONT. And that'll get you over the show notes. There's some demo over there, whatever Dany wants to show you, it'll be over there. And of course, ways to hook up with the CRM. But I mean, you really need a CRM. Whether you get Dany's or you get someone else's or you make your own, you got to have one because you're spending too much money on leads, right? And then I want to talk to everybody. It might be one of the nuggets out of this, podcast. A lot of times we get on these podcasts and we do get some nuggets that are planned, but you might get a nugget that's not planned, and they can be equally as valuable. You said a couple of things I wanted to touch base with you about. So get over to 1000houses.com/4 and then FRONT and check out, get your 14-day free trial and see how simple it is and imagine if it works for you. I'm going to say that most of the people probably listening to this podcast, most of the people would be very happy to do 20 houses a year because the nature of this podcasting and information business is new people coming in. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science. Certainly there are some people doing 100 houses a year, and certainly there's some people maybe listening right now that do more than 100 houses a year, but it's very, very thin slice of pie. You know what I mean? So check it out. So one of the things, and I may not have this link here, but I may put it in the show notes. I've got it. I wasn't being rude, Dany. I was texting to trying to get a link so that I could get the listeners something that I want to talk to about. There's still, no matter how good your CRM is, you're running into buyers who want to sell for retail, and they're not going to pay a discounted price to us. And there's this guy named Chris, and if you go over to 1000houses.com/forefront, and my office just pound back there trying to find the link right now, and I'll give it to you guys when I get it. If not, I'll put it over in the show notes. But he teaches you how to make relationships with one certain realtor who understands what you're doing, and you just flip all those other leads that you can't buy so that they can be listed and sold on MLS for market price. I've thought about this before, and for whatever reasons, it always fell apart because I didn't make it my sole endeavor to figure out how to make it work. There's this guy that I'm going to introduce you to that has figured out how to make it work. And when he told me how it works and what I was doing wrong and why it wouldn't work the way I had tried it a few times before, I said, shoot, no wonder yours works and mine doesn't. It's a no-brainer, but it's just one of those tiny little minutia things that an expert figured out. And so I'm saying, maybe when you collect your CRM here from Dany, go ahead and take this idea too and find a way to push off all these leads that just need to be listed on MLS. Yeah. You already have their name. You're already talking to them. And then you make this appointment with this, it teaches you how to find the realtor. It teaches you a couple of key things. And we just started it like 2 months ago with quite honestly, not the most seasoned closer in the world. And we've already listed and sold like 6 properties that we made 40% of the commission on. And
Right.
it's helping to pay for our advertising, our mail outs and whatever it is we're doing. We actually believe right now it can completely 100% offset our mailings cost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've got one of my favorite customers, actually. His name is Don in the system. He's actually does hybrid model. And I hear a lot more about people doing this hybrid model of agent and investor. And this guy, his wife is an agent. And then, so in within ForeFront, he's got a pipeline view that is for his flipping. And then if a lead comes in that's really not for that, it's going to go more to the listing side. He's got a separate pipeline view with that. So he's got running down two different pipelines, right?
Exactly,
so really cool.
Exactly the idea, but there's a technique and a way to do it that works. In the way I was trying to do it never seemed to work. And it was obvious once I saw it. You guys will see it when you go over there to that link. It'll be in the show notes if they don't send it over to me right now. But, these are the kinds of things that the CRM can also actually, give you a heads up, say they want retail. Okay, well, you got to get it to this person, and go get it listed. And we figure we're going to make about $100,000 extra this year.
Nice. From
that 40% of the commissions. But, we're kind of a high volume house, but you know what I mean? But we brought a person right in licensed. They only work for us. They only follow our leads. They don't work for anybody else.
Oh, nice.
And
what do you do whenever it's they want retail, but you think that there might be a little bit more motivation there. There might be a deal with some follow-up. Like how do you make that determining factor?
The key thing was they put it on MLS. They're trying to get the retail. Maybe we all know that it's not worth retail, that it has too many problems, but the seller has to discover this on his own. So we're still with them. And when they finally decide to throw up their hands or their clock is running out of time and they haven't found a buyer, and even if they find a buyer, it's going to take 90 days to close. You know what I mean? That they have to settle for our cash offer now. We're kind of staying in touch with them in the event that they come to our conclusion before it's over.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that's why I want it all in house, because the guy that I got is not only trained to sell the house on MLS, he's also trained to keep track of the guy and say, are you sure you don't want our cash offer again, to resubmit our cash offer when things get sticky, and say, you don't have to deal with all this. We could just write you a check. So they're working for us, and they understand both sides. So where do people make the biggest mistake on their follow-up?
I think it has to do with perception. Like everybody hears the term fortunes in the follow-up, right? Everybody, I know it, right? I know that follow-up is something I must be doing. But how many people are actually doing it? I mean, there's people that will say that they're doing it, but then it turns out in reality, they're not. They're trying to call them once or twice after the fact, and then it ends, right? There's no true follow-up for the long term. And I think, we had one of these calls I was talking about where we're determining, okay, well, where's the next step in the direction of evolution of the software? And, we asked everybody that was on the call, who's using the automated follow-up? We've got this great automated follow-up in the system. Who's using it? And it was about half and half. And the half that was getting on to the case of all the people that weren't. Well, and what are you doing? You're leaving money on the table. This is producing deals that we would not have gotten had we not had follow-up happening. And so we got a chance to ask the people that weren't doing it, why the hell are you not doing this? And it boiled down to this message of, well, we just felt like it was maybe going to seem too salesy or too pushy. Really? So there's this perception. So the perception is like, you can look at reality in all kinds of different ways, right? And so if somebody's coming at the angle of automated follow-up or even follow-up in general as pestering somebody to sell their house, you're already coming at it from the wrong angle, because you're making an assumption that you're pestering somebody, that you're not offering a service that truly is of value to this seller, right? It's just the wrong mindset. But if you're looking at it like, I'm just simply reminding them that I exist and that I would like to help them get rid of their house, you're coming from a different perspective. It's really all about just staying top of mind, right? For when, like you said, their clock is running down, the time is running out for them. Motivation's increasing because situations, circumstances change. You just want to be the person they think of when that happens.
Yeah. So, what's your experience? You hear all the time, people are buying on the 7th, the 8th, the 9th touch, right? These things don't, first of all, do you agree with that, or where are you finding it?
Well, I mean, I guess that's like the view of, it's a matter of touches when I think it sometimes, or actually maybe even the majority of time, it's more a matter of just situations in people's lives. So it's not even the amount of touches that you had. That probably plays into it as a sales, there's a proven sales, percentages of things like that. But I think it just happens to be the thing that something in their life changes enough to the point where they're just ready to move at a certain point. And so you happen to be there, because I've bought houses 8 years follow up.
Really? Our oldest was 4 years, about 4.5. That's amazing. Yeah. So by the way, one of the things that has, nothing happens a lot because, we're dealing in small numbers, right? But we have noticed that this one thing keeps showing up. People say, they come back in a year and a half or whatever and say, we're ready to consider your offer now. Does it still stand? I say, well, sure. Then we go back. The CRM allows us to know what our offer was, right? So we don't look like a fool. And then you ask them, why me? Why after all this time, and why me? And they say, you're the only guy that ever sent a hard contract. It's still sitting on his armoire. It's still sitting there. We're the only one that ever sent out, and it had a self-addressed envelope, not stamped, because I don't want to spend the money for that. I figure if a guy's serious about somebody's house, he can at least lick a stamp. There's one of the gate stamp, buy a stamp and lick it and put it on there. But do they still lick stamps anymore? I don't know.
No.
Oh, okay. So, as a follow-up, one of our things that we always try to do is at least send a hard copy of a contract, whether they ask for it or not. Even when they told us, and sometimes in the notes we'd see, this guy ran us off the property, with a shotgun, off my property, and then here he is calling us back. And we don't mention that part, that don't you remember me? I'm the guy that you spit on when I was out there and told me to get off your property. We don't mention that part, of course, but we ask him, so why us? He said, well, you're the only guy that ever sent a real contract.
It's funny. I've heard the same stories of people saying, don't ever contact me again. And then they end up contacting them back. And it's almost like you're hitting something. There's a deeper pain in them that causes that reaction, which is maybe even a sign of more motivation. Now, I don't want people to somebody say, stop mailing them, and they just start mailing them more. You could end up in some trouble with especially texting and stuff. But
you got to pick your battles, right? But maybe in that case, you just say, hey, I know you weren't happy with my offer. I just want to send out, maybe you can use my offer to get someone else to offer you more or something. You know what I mean?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass. Maybe you can use my offer and get someone to pay you more, but you won't be able to do that unless I give it to you in writing. So here it is.
Yeah. Or and even just set a follow-up to happen a year, 6 months or a year, have time for them to cool off or something. But anyway.
So tell us about a success story in your CRM.
Success story. So there's, customer Mike looking to double his number of deals and bring on a team. And so he's gotten to the place where he's utilizing the system to prepare for that team and having his processes and systems in place, because with the pipeline, in leveraging these, I'm going to be careful about how much terms I use, because it's going to glaze people's eyes over sometimes, but just automations to make sure at each stage along the way in the progression of taking a lead into deal, meaning making contact, appointment setting, negotiating, under contract closed, etc. You have different things that need to be done in the system, right? Different regarding that lead, right? You get an appointment, you're going to want to make sure that you've done your research, your due diligence, all that kind of good stuff, so that you're ready to make an offer when you're at the appointment. So all that kind of stuff happens within the system. It's built into it. So as he hires people, they come in and already know what they need to do, because the system, as soon as that drags over into appointment set, he's got those tasks created for them, assigned to them. It's all just done. They know what they need to do. and it's all done. So he's been able to do that to get to the point where he's looking to double this year the number of deals that he's done, that's actually our mission, is to help 1,000 real estate investors double their average monthly deals.
Cool. So just in case anybody's really green out there, you get a house under contract. It goes in the CRM. And under contract, like my administrator gets a thing, send this over to the title company, whatever it is we need to do, make sure we know who sent us the lead so we know who we might owe if we buy it. Then, they schedule the closing. Then when the closing happens, it goes out to messages go out to all kinds of people, but one of the people's like, turn on the utilities, turn on the water, turn on the electric for this address right here. This stuff's all happening automatically. Someone else is like, meet the contractor at this house,
Yeah.
Starts to get the contract for the rehab. And then another a message goes out to someone else saying, a multitude of things just happening all the time, so that people are always engaged. And then then in a CRM, when people complete a task, they mark it completed, and you can start to see how this deal is moving down a train track, going through one process and procedure after another, till it's getting to the point where there's finally a little sign that says sold,
Yep.
Closed out. This file is closed, sold.
You're absolutely right. And taking when I started the conversation earlier, talking about taking the business from hobby to business, doesn't have to mean no fun, doesn't have to mean stop having this, be this entrepreneurial hobby type thing. What it does is getting to this place where things are organized like that. It takes all this crap that you've got holding on in your head, that all this stuff has to be happening, and you have to go check on it. Even if it's just you or you and your wife or you and a partner, there's a lot going on that you're juggling that you feel like, well, there's no way to really know that this is all done. So it's just all kind of there, and it keeps you from being at a place to where that's not there. So you have the mind space available to work on your business, right? To look at what is the thing that's going to move the needle for this company.
For me, after 15 years of burning the candle at both ends and doing everything and wearing all the hats, right? The game became, how do you make this where it doesn't need me? Right. That became the game. That became the fun. That became the jigsaw puzzle. It became, that was the parcheesi of what I was trying to do that day. I'm trying to win this game. Your dad would like to be a craftsman. He liked doing that stuff. So what you do is you use the CRM so you're not bogged down with everything except for what you want to do.
Right.
If he wants to be a craftsman, it's hard to be a really happy craftsman when you're having to call title companies and lenders and all that stuff. I mean, because a craftsman's probably not any good at that, right? Or doesn't like that part, right? A craftsman likes to do cabinets and floor work and tile work and all that stuff. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to work in your house if that's the part you love,
Some people like going on the appointments, but they don't want to deal with the calls. They don't want to deal with, follow-up. They don't want to do with all that stuff. They just want to go on appointments. And so they have that set up, bring on the people to do that kind of thing for them, or the marketing piece, right? Like who's going to manage all that marketing for you? But yeah, it took me 8 or 9 years to get to the point where it was wearing all the hats. I was just done with it. I couldn't do it anymore.
And maybe that's more the way we all get there. I was certainly smart enough to get there a lot earlier, but I didn't have the will or my back wasn't pushed in the corner enough. What's scary is don't wait until you're burned out to try to fix your business, because you might not have enough energy left. You know what I'm saying? Because it takes energy to fix this business, and it takes some time. So I almost made the mistake of waiting too late. Because by the time I came to the conclusion, like, I got to make this business run without me, I didn't have any energy left for it. I was a very jaded, fried. I was fried, quite frankly, just fried. Luckily, with every chair that I filled, with every CRM piece that I got fixed, my load got lightened, and it got lightened again. It got easier to fix the next piece because I had more time to fix the next piece because I'd already fixed 2 pieces. And so the very hardest piece to fix is the first piece. And it might be just finding the right CRM. I always say delegate the easiest things. If you can pick up a CRM that's already built that works for you, great. Don't invent it. You can substitute books, your bookkeeping. Your CPAs, get that out. That one of the easiest things to substitute. Sales is pretty easy to substitute, no matter what product you're selling, flipping, whatever. Get someone else to sell your houses. The salespeople are a dime a dozen. You should be able to pay them decent if they do a good job for you. And, so start lightening the load everywhere. If you're, one chair at a time, if you're trying to get free.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be, because I was thinking in terms of, if I bring on help, I've got to bring on full-time help and pay them a salary and all this kind of stuff. And that is not even remotely the case. Even if the whole term VA scares you, it doesn't even have to be somebody across the world. It could be your mother-in-law. It could be your aunt who's at home and has time to answer the phone or do this, that, and the other thing. I mean, it's just part-time people, bring them on, see how it works out, take that load off of you.
Let's talk about that. I mean, I have 4 acquisition people. They're not on salary. They're all paid upon success. You got to make those success plans lucrative because, they don't hit a deal every other day. So when they stick with a deal and they find a deal after 4 months, they need to get paid pretty damn good. You know what I mean? So you need to have a fine balance between, giving away the farm and paying them really good. Commission only salesmen get paid good because if they don't sell, they don't eat. And that's a little bit harder personality trait to find. You know what I mean? A hunter, a guy that's going to go out and hunt and kill for himself and for you. And he's going to share the kill. Then also I have 2 salespeople. They only get paid upon success. So I have this whole team, but I only pay with the money that hits the table, which is a great comfort because I've been in businesses where I created a hamster wheel that was rolling in a circle that I could not get off of without going bankrupt. You know what I mean? I had to keep feeding it. I couldn't get off, but I didn't want to stay on it, but I had to stay on it. It was a different kind of business, but be careful as an entrepreneur. You're not just creating yourself this job that you're a slave to, real problem.
Which goes back into what you were saying a moment ago about getting to the point where you're so bogged down in keeping on the hamster wheel that you don't see that you're stuck on a hamster wheel. You don't have the energy to even consider that you got to do something different.
Yeah, or because you can't do one more task. I got to train who now to do what? Oh, I'll just do it myself because I don't have time. Yeah, I hear that all the time. All right, my friends, I want you to go to 1000houses.com/4 and the word front, FRONT. Check it out. You'll get a 14-day free subscription to Dany's CRM. See how it works out for you. I mean, if you don't have a CRM, you got nothing to lose. And believe me, you're losing a lot by just not having a CRM. So, get somebody's CRM for heaven's sakes, because, but why don't you try this one out? Dany's taken his time to come on this show and to talk to you about it. And he's got a free 14-day trial. So check it out. Anything you want to add to maybe the new investors out there listening, Dany, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, just especially for new investors, take a look at your fear of the things that are keeping you from taking the next step in the business. Acknowledging that it's okay to have that fear because we've all got it at different levels. As you grow, you're always going to have fear. Accept the fact that you're afraid and just determine what the next step is and take that action. And don't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out whether you're taking the optimal action, or maybe you should do this or that and get bogged down in all those details. Just take some action. You're going to make mistakes, make them, learn, find a new direction. And that's the way to success. I know it sounds very simple, but that's really the key to it.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and would like to take that one step further and say, when you know that what you're doing is what you want to do, that's about the time you find a coach so you can alleviate yourself from some of this stress. You're going to pay one way or the other. You're going to pay the street, or you're going to pay someone who's already done what you've done and is willing to teach you, but they can't give their time away for free and their expertise away for free. They got lives too, and they only 24 hours in a day for everybody. So you're either going to pay the street or you're going to pay a coach. If you're looking for a coach, try to find someone who's actively doing what it is you want to do, that's been successful and is in a place where you would like to be. And last but not least, and listen to this one the hardest, make sure they're the kind of person that you would like to be on and off the field. Integrity is what I'm talking about, your moral compass and all that stuff. Make sure that person is who you want to be on and off the field, because their private stuff bleeds over into the business all the time. You can't separate it. So, all right. That's Mitch Stephen interviewing with Dany Johnson. I appreciate you very much. 1000houses.com/4 and the word front, FRONT. I'd like to thank Livecom. Please check out livecom.com, LIVECOMM.com. If you want to learn how to set up some smartphone numbers, and I can show you how mass texting has drastically affected my life and how I've used Livecom to get that done. Just check out the homepage. There's a lot of information there at livecom.com, LIVECOMM.com. This is Mitch Stephen with the 1000houses.com podcast. I would like to thank each and every one of you for stopping by to get you some Dany Johnson. And we're out of here. See you at the next podcast. Bye now.
Thanks, Mitch.